Yeah. So I'll just do the intro and then we'll hop right into it.
Sure.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Carroll. I'm here with some incredible people in the arts ecosystem, in the music ecosystem, in the entrepreneurial and business ecosystem. We wanted to have a conversation around the music ecosystem and kind of framing of this upcoming conversation, the Town Hall Part 2. I kind of want to dive into the previous Town Hall and the incredible study that Don Pitts was tasked to do, and he's done like 15 or 20 of them since. I wasn't at the original Town Hall, and I wasn't a part of the original study that Don Pitts did called the Pittsburgh Music Ecosystem Study. But for the people who are aware and were around that, the beautiful study that I was able to bump into about a year and a half ago, can you dive into like why the study happened, what happened as a result of the study, and then consequently the town hall that happened after? Jeff or
Anybody?
Thomas?
I mean, it's funny because
It's funny hearing
the way that I jumped into it, I kind of bullied my way into it.
that's
because
Thomas.
I heard about what was happening, or I think we got like a couple emails and a couple people in passing were talking about bringing in Don Pitts, and I was just very interested because I'm like, we have always talked about, at least the people that have been around, and when you're looking at professionals, how come you're not looking at the professionals that are right there in front of your face, or the people who have already been contributing to some of this information that you are looking for? Having been around Christiane and knowing of the work that she has already been doing, I for me, I just went guns blazing and was like, who is this? Who's doing what? I need to know. And I know that people weren't going to shut me down, at least from getting the information and knowing
Rarely
what was
does it
going
happen.
on. But
Oh,
you're funny. But really getting a chance to sit down with Don and him really talk about the work that he wanted to do, wanted to take a look at the ecosystem of Pittsburgh, wanting to know, all the different pieces. Like, he came in with the utmost respect, wanted to listen to people, wanted to talk to people. I was very appreciative that he took the time out of his day to listen to me, as especially the way that, like I said, the way that I came in hot.
How did you you was like, yo, what's going on? Like, you didn't think that he was going to have an open ear to your shit,
I don't think it was that at all. It was just finding out who, right? Like, who is this, or who is putting this together? Because I want to know all the pieces of, like, who's putting this together, how did this happen, who are you reaching out to, speaking to, and being able to sit down with them and have that conversation. I ended up, I think at the time, and I think she ended up taking a step back, but it was Tinsy at the time, and she set the
Tinsy Labrie worked at Visit Pittsburgh, marketing and communications.
Oh, so there was a Visit
there were
Pittsburgh tourism.
There were multiple stakeholders, as you would say,
I'm
that
still
were
learning about this.
It was
a part of, if not directly a part of the Pittsburgh music ecosystem. They were stakeholders who were, I think, promoting. Dawn needed information from community members. So it was 1,800 or over 2,000 people met with him, and he really utilized different people, like from Thomas and Boom and Tinsy and whatnot, to kind of reach a lot of people in the music ecosystem, not just in the city, but outside of the
county.
city, the county. So to kind of have a bigger.
Well, there was a tourism element of it as well. A lot of it was, is there enough music downtown for if business people are visiting Pittsburgh? Do they have enough entertainment? That was a large element of.
Yeah. And that's the reality of the music in general. It's a tourism. It's a economic driver.
Yeah.
So,
But that's also where you have downtown partnership as being one of the major pieces, because, of course, they're looking at entertainment from the scope of, like, how is it affecting the downtown area? Because, of course, like, Pittsburgh has been trying so hard to revitalize downtown with new restaurants, be this place where people can live, trying to push the art And, you know, again, not like, you know, now we have all these apartments that are getting renovated and all this money that's going to, you know, fix infrastructure downtown. But I really think that was like one of the first pieces of like, how do we figure out how to get the best entertainment downtown, of course, because that's downtown Pittsburgh, downtown partnerships role. And then you have WYEP, who the grant kind of really went through. And they pushed to get, you know, Don and get a professional to come in here and look at the landscape and get information and talk to people. And so that kind of progressed into focus groups where he talked to all different lanes. So he wasn't just talking to musicians. He talked to venue owners. He talked to promoters and marketers and, you know, all these different people trying to just gather all the information about where the professionals at. Yeah. You know, what information is going on, like what's going on in the venue scene, what kind of help or resources or anything do they have, what kind of things do the musicians or promoters, and what do they bring to the table, and what kind of resources and help do they get. So had that, then, you know, we had the town hall also, where it was a place for everybody to kind of convene and have a discussion. But, you know, what we've been talking about and discussing over and over again, you know, like people have been fed up with what's been going on in the city. And when you don't have an opportunity to really talk to people who have either done you wrong or, you know, something went wrong, you know, during your production or your performance or things that's going on, when you don't really have an opportunity to communicate with each other, to kind of settle, you know, differences and or wrongs, right? And certain people brought that to the town hall because it's like, I'm not getting any answers, right?
A lot of trauma.
And there's a lot of trauma and there's a lot of just unresolved relationship thingies that's happening. And, you know, then you also have this town hall where people still didn't understand what the music ecosystem.
The framing of it was all wrong, especially in the media.
Did the study come out pre-town hall?
No.
That
was the last piece.
That was the last piece. So the town halls are part of the study. Okay,
but
Jeff,
it was framed in even the fact that Don was coming to town and the announcement of the grant to launch the ecosystem was announced in the media in a way that, like, well, Pittsburgh, you know, yins guys don't know what you're doing, so, you know, the city is bringing in this professional from Austin, Texas, to tell you all how it's done, and that kicked up all the people. I mean, obviously, you know, got upset about that, but that was the way it was framed.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking about this. I found it fascinating that it was framed that way and that people are kicking dirt on Don, because prior to the Pittsburgh music ecosystem, I had been working with Heather Croft, who came up with Fair Play Pittsburgh Music. So we had spent 4 years, Thomas has been included in a lot of these discussions, going to different venues. We talked to classical musicians. We talked to jazz musicians. We made sure to go to different venues that would kind of focus on these things. Made sure to involved engineers, recording, you know, whoever to really, you know, whoever felt that this was part of the discussion. We made clear, like, this is the ecosystem, right? We are all a part of how this is going to get better. And that was Heather's idea. Like, I don't know any musician, I haven't met one musician who doesn't realize that we have incredible musicians. We have some great venues, but somehow we're not connecting to make it better. So we would have several meetings a year, and we asked the same question, because it was the same 4 questions to try to gather the information from all different perspectives. So I'm just kind of want to do a shout out to Heather Croft and Lauren DeMache.
Yeah.
We did this work prior to the Pittsburgh music ecosystem. We shared that work. David Pankratz, our advocacy person at the time, rest in peace, made a summation of it. So we shared that with WIP and Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. I'm bringing this up because I think if we're going to talk about moving forward, we need to move forward with all of our eyes open and actually give credit where credit is due.
Yep, sure.
And to look at things for what they are and not presume and assume. So people were upset about Dawn coming here, but we needed an objective perspective. While we also need to support women who were actually doing this work before then, right? So for me, some of this outcry against him was like really unwarranted because people were doing the work. And before us, there were people doing the work, right? I'm sure there are elders who have been doing this work before me that I'm not aware of,
Christiane,
right?
why do you think there was such an outcry? Like, what is the root, the basis? Is it just Pittsburgh pride, or is it just people just uneducated, or just not knowing what, is going on?
There is an assumption, and it's communicated by people who live here or don't live here or used to live here, that specific things that happen here only happen here, and it's really not true. If you look at the statistics, it's happening nationally. Mm-hmm. It is a problem with the way American art is actually perceived. Everyone wants it, but no one wants to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So, maybe Pittsburgh talks about that in a certain kind of way, but it is happening across our nation in lots of different cities. Some cities have been able to, I will say, have that courage to try different models to see what works. Mm-hmm. And that is what I think is specific to Pittsburgh. What is going to work for this environment of bridges, this environment of rivers, and like the topography plays a part in how people engage in their communities or don't engage in their communities. So I think a clarity on what actually is Pittsburgh's problem versus what is actually a national problem. Like there's a lot of, to me, presuming things that are happening nationally is just a Pittsburgh problem. It's really not. And it spirals out of control, right? And everyone's acting like, well, right? That's language for everyone's mad and pissed off.
Right?
And this is why this new town hall, from my perspective, is very important and key. Like we're sitting here going, oh my God, this was 8 years ago. There are so many young people, or even just people emerging, like finally have that time, like, hey, the pandemic opened up some doorways, so people are making music. So the question and the focus, I think, is less on what isn't working and what can work.
Adam, we just literally talked yesterday.
I was just gonna say that's right on the money. There's so many. I think I appreciate the note about post COVID is there's just such a boom and creative shift and like people that want to start being creative here, and just the shift of for me it's always been seeing the import of like what I want to see is people being able to move to Pittsburgh because they see that there's a sustainable ecosystem here and that there is a reason to come here. It makes me so upset, like genuinely, when I see an artist that's like, I'm moving to New York, or I'm moving to Nashville, I'm moving to Atlanta. Like, how do we build the infrastructure? And it's great to see, businesses and individuals and creatives that are like now starting to come to the table. Like we need that youthful energy to be able to continue this conversation.
Yeah. So from what I understand, as someone who dove into the research in the news articles, is that the town hall turned into something a bit of a higher level.
It was a real life Facebook comment section. Basically. It's like it was the Facebook comment section in person. Basically.
So I think you said it was set up to be like that. It was set up to be adversarial.
Yes.
As opposed to let's really talk about what was discovered through these different town halls that Dawn, and I had a wonderful moment with Dawn where we just sat down and got real, and I was like,
I really like Dawn.
I like Dawn too, and I was like, you're being attacked for this reason. I'm sorry that the people who brought you here didn't really tell you. And they kind of framed it a certain kind of way. So they've put you in a certain kind of situation. Yeah, they set you up. So let's talk about, I gave them a sense of what the community was upset about and how to approach it, and like with respect, and understand like, this is why they're attacking you. It isn't really about you. It's about this idea of, top down telling people who can and who can't participate, who can and can't be a part of the system, changing of the system. What is this ecosystem? The gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
And I want to echo what Jeff's saying, just because I have to leave soon. All of us here are concerned citizens who love music,
Mm-hmm.
who
That's
play
all we are.
music, who listen to music, who go to see music. We don't want to be talking heads. We are not in charge of anything, but
Right.
we are going to try to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm excited about like the fact that we had this. Was it a year and a half ago?
About where you sat me down in where did you take me for lunch? Where was
I
that?
forget. But
it was
you
like
know,
a
to meet you
yeah.
and hear what you were talking about and go like, hey, did you see this music ecosystem? And to realize your focus and drive and passion was inclusive.
Yeah.
And I think that was some of what was missing the first time around. And it was because of the way, not just media, but like, I think the leaders of the project didn't prepare Dawn or didn't even really prepare the community for what it was going to
Sure.
be or could have been or what it is.
Yeah, I don't really. I also think they just really didn't think that was going to happen. Like the response of putting this information out was going to the way that the way that was put out, the information that was put together in whatever shape or form. They didn't think the people would respond in this way, and wouldn't have a sense of like how are you because I think also it made people was like, how are you going to tell me something that I've been doing?
Well, that's it was framed in
For
a
a
way that
while.
was that it was basically saying you, the community of Pittsburgh, you're not good enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so immediately you're off on the wrong foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but but on the other hand, I was excited that people were pushing back
Yep.
because that tells me you care
Yep.
on some level. Like to be indifferent is horrible,
Yeah.
right? If you love it or you hate it until you figure out what it is. Yeah, it was a moment of like finally voices were really just kind of like, okay, I'm just really done with this. This isn't the first report. There's been, the artistic community has seen multiple reports of how can this be better? And then
Report after report.
report after report, and we're asked to contribute and pour our soul out to you. And then you submit it, and then you share it. And once again, we don't see anything happening.
To your point, and I know you're about to leave, but if you could just speak to this last thing. Post town hall, Christiane, the report comes out. What are some of the things that you see or that maybe you were involved in or heard that were happening as a result of the town hall and report?
I think like, is it Tech 25? Kind of, Tech 25 and We Rock.
Okay.
Kind of
I
grabbed.
didn't hear about Rerock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's through Mr. Smalls, Liz Berlin.
Okay.
And grab that educational component,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, let's look at what was outlined and look around and understand that different partners, organizations, or just groups of people have taken some of these initiatives and made them come to life. There are other things like, being able to designate parking out front of the venue that is specifically for unloading equipment. I don't think that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
I know the noise complaint thing, I'm not
It's
sure.
still being worked on.
It's still,
Shout
but
out-
where
shout-
you
shout
can't
out to
anonymously.
Allison. She's slowly still working on that. I've seen some of those conversations, but yeah.
But that brought up the fact that it was clear, or it became clear that it was the same 5 people complaining about different venues, right? So, there are pieces that were being worked on, but there are a lot of things that have not risen to a level of like happening,
Which
right?
is the
That could
purpose of-
still
Yeah.
like really transform the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean, post-COVID, I think we have to be honest that this could be a win-win for everybody in the ecosystem if there were time and a pause to stop being adversarial
Mm-hmm.
and recognize that without me, there is no you, and without you, there is no me. No venue, no musicians. We work we have to work together, and a lot of times, as a former musician, that is an adversarial position,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're pushing you out and act like you should be grateful and thankful, and I think that is also kind of
Grateful and
underlying. Yeah. It's an
so real.
underlying attitude that happens with people who control certain aspects of the music scene, telling artists and performers, you should just be grateful and thankful. And they won't work with you on making it like a positive experience for anybody. I remember performing Club Cafe, and they had a constant flow of people who weren't even from Pittsburgh. They were visitors, call it tourism or whatever. And their experience of the music in that venue was tremendous. They always left with their minds blown about how great Pittsburgh musicians are. The downtown, I think they renovated it, but I would go see the jazz there. Visitors, once again, really, really blown away. There is no question, without a doubt.
The talent
is here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why are we fighting each other? And this is like the work, right? This is the work that we could all be doing. Less fighting and figure out like what is in this list of the ecosystem. Who can do this, right? And I think I think after the town hall, or maybe was it before the town hall, that there was a big meeting at
down at was it Hard Rock? Was it Hard Rock?
Yeah, Hard Rock Cafe,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that was
before, right?
I like to feel like it was after.
That was like a mixer. That was like a networking event.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
That wasn't really like a meeting.
Oh, there's another plot twist. Like what
I don't
happened?
remember.
I'm just learning the story.
Well,
Sometimes
it was
more
very
of a- yeah, it
odd
was more of a
because
mixer.
there were definite initiatives, right? And trying to get people engaged to launch these initiatives was suddenly just, that was the feeling I got. Like, well, the report is done, and like there were sheets on tables, like sign up for this and sign up for that. And I'm like, that's not how you do it. Like, I mean, just as someone who's worked in arts administration for 30 years, that's not how you engage the community. It was kind of flippant to me. Like, you created this report and you didn't really offer opportunities for engagement. You didn't really want to connect with the community. You wanted to talk to the community and gather some information and then tell us what needs to be done. And then there's nothing else to make it happen. Right? There's no real engagement. There's no real, like, I think you're going to, hey, we need something about venues. We need this. We need that. And then there's no money to back any of that up. So I guess we're all just supposed to voluntarily make this happen while we're all still losing money.
Yeah.
Trying to make
And
the
we
best
just
music ever.
Talking
Yeah,
about
I
with
was gonna
Philly
say.
about how like the reality of this, what this thing is going to look like.
Yeah.
Christiane, go ahead, Thomas.
But yeah, so to what she was saying too, it's like there were no actionable items outside of the recommendations that Don put into the report. Right? There were, it's like, hey, here's some great recommendations that would still work today easily. But when you're doing something like that, and I don't think that was up to him, he did his work.
Yeah.
He did what he was supposed to. This is where
They
all the other
actually
partners
watered
come
it down
in.
a little bit too, because.
But that's where the partners, you're supposed to come in and say, hey, we're going to build relationships with nonprofits. We're going to build relationships with these people. And then we're going to also help them. Like, if they want to pick up some of these things, like, let's figure out how to get some funding, some operational funding to do these things. Nobody wants to create a 501(c), you know what I mean, a nonprofit, because it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of writing, and nobody's offering you to pick up that piece to then also have that engage the community. You know, that's another job. That's another job. We all work. We all got something to do. All the people who ended up being involved in some sort of way, everybody has a job. Everybody has something to do. And to pick up something that is heavy lifting like that without any resource of like, yo, we'll actually help you step through these pieces. That's how you create action, right? You say, hey, you know, we're still here to help. Don may be gone after he done gave us this playbook. We're here to help anybody who wants to step up. And those were like some of the questions that we kept asking some of the people who were leading, and we weren't getting any of the answers for. And it's like, well, I'm going to continue my practice and maybe take some of this info and, you know, push it through my practice a little bit even more. Like, because we always talk about wage. Wage is something that we're always continuously talking about. You know, are people getting paid fairly, equitably in different places? And, you know, how looking at budgets, having artists being able to look at the business side. So, you know, a lot of those pieces, those were the pieces that were missing in continuing the work. It was just kind of like, here's the playbook. What are you guys going to do with it?
It was anticlimactic.
Yes.
And I was super excited about it. And, you know, there's something very weird about being super excited about something that other people made happen through funding, whatever, who present in a non, like, okay, whatever. You know, it was just like, really? We all put this work into it and
Poof.
Yeah. So where is the structure to even kind of, as you're saying, even start the work? Nothing. Signing up for different committees is not going to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not. You actually need to have thought about a structure on how do we make these things happen? What's the first couple of things we're going to do? Mm-hmm. Kind of like when we were talking about, like, okay, what are the
actionables?
Yeah. Actionables, small wins,
medium, and long term.
What's the big long term goal? Like those things need steps. They need to be thought out, and you need to really engage the people. Like, hey, what do you want to do? It's not engagement. Mm-hmm. It's not engagement.
No, 1,000%. I want to be extremely respectful of your time. I was a horrible human being here and was an hour and a half late. So I really appreciate you. If you want to stay, though, please stay. Right, we can go. Okay, so I'm going to the next topic. So, identifying the music ecosystem needs. What are some of the things, especially as one of the artists in the room, that musicians, creative adjacent professionals, live venues, and from the perspective of the arts ecosystem itself, are going through? Right, like what are some of the issues, and what are possible, if we're thinking in solution-based approach? What are some of the possible solutions to these issues? Maybe we'll start with like live venues, and like I know you work with your organization and you're also a manager and musician yourself. Mm-hmm. What do you think some of these issues are, and like ways that we could possibly like start getting into solutions?
Yeah, I mean, trying to from the promoter perspective, from the venue perspective, I think one thing that, you know, we've always tried to focus on is a lot in artist development. Mm-hmm. It's constantly been a stream of, you know, how do we work collaboratively with artists to give them a platform, to try to give them resources to be able to thrive and succeed. Yeah. I think that just holistically, from the ecosystem at large, like trying to make efforts to try to, you know, not be a gatekeeper in that industry, to try to build more resources around what's going to ultimately help the artist. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, I know that, years ago, you know, there's always been like kind of this dichotomy of trying to understand like the artist versus the venue and the promoter. In reality, you know, we all want to work together towards the same goal of, you know, we want to be able to support artists in
a thriving ecosystem.
In a thriving ecosystem. We want to be able to, as a promoter, we want to be able to, you know, there's three different buckets that from our perspective, like we try to fill, and it's, we want to service the artists, we want to service the venues, we want to service the fans. And so to try to be able to build resources and tools, and honestly, one thing that I've been thinking of a lot recently has been like this notion of how do you like create how do you, not resources, but how do you do like indexing, and how do you do creative shares around marketing practices? How do you
recently just released that the media kit of
trying to find like more collaborative initiatives that are going to connect artists to, like, especially local, connecting local artists to local makers in the industry, whether it's videographers, photographers, graphic designers, recording studios, vinyl manufacturing plants. Like,
shout out to Jeff.
Yeah. Shout out to Jeff. Like, how do we help connect the dots to help give artists the tools to help them succeed? Yeah. A lot of that is like a conversation around wage, and a lot of it is around, you know, making it a beneficial experience for the artist. And, you know, I know that 10 years ago, 10 years ago, that practice was very frowned upon. Like a lot of practices were very frowned upon. We've been trying to make efforts to really,
Oh, so we're talking about the conversation now of like.
Oh no, wait.
Yeah, we're talking about the conversation of like, artists paying to perform and artists selling tickets. I know that was a practice maybe 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We want to talk about like where are we at now? Has there been a transition? Is there education portion to promoters and venues? Is there education portion to artists? Where do you think we are at now in the region? And I know that me and you have constantly been having this conversation.
Right. I mean, I think that there's a lot of education on the the relationship between the artist and the promoter and the venue. Understanding from the venue to the artist perspective of, having been an artist for 8 years in indie pop band and like understanding kind of the finances that are involved with it, the business practice, just putting the time and energy into that art of making yourself as, whatever success is in your perspective of as being an artist and, really trying to understand that from like the venue to artist perspective, and then from the artist to venue, we want to try to be able to help building resources around, how can we help be collaborative in marketing, something that like, trying to help provide, whether it's suggestions, whether it's marketing toolkits, whether it's trying to connect them with maybe necessarily like trying to connect them with other artists in general, and just trying to help build that roadmap and just be better stewards in trying to direct that conversation.
Yeah. And I guess the purpose in sharing those resources and preparing the artist is because of the business of the promoter and the live venue. Because there is a business aspect where we want to make sure that the artist is able to bring an audience, but also like there's an educational and business aspect to the live venue. And I'm under the understanding that some of those practices of like, from your organization's standpoint, has kind of transitioned into like being collaborative, working towards providing artists with more opportunities. And then there's also like an education portion that you do on your personal side.
Yeah. I mean, from the venue and promoter side, just trying to go into the educational aspect of, what are the costs, like the hard costs and variable costs of presenting a show, like insurance for a venue and promoters is nearly like the cost of that is insurmountable and has gotten more expensive like post COVID. The staffing for venues, artist guarantees, all these fixed and variable expenses that keep adding up and has been continuing to rise post COVID. But at the same time too, like, again, I mentioned the bucket of artists is like, that's one of the folks that that's one of the buckets that we serve, trying to be more communicative in understanding, what some of those struggles are. And then how can we meet that in the middle? How can we have a conversation around, what is going to be a mutually beneficial deal, or what is going to be a mutually beneficial conversation, so that we're both, we're both leaving this situation, feeling warm and fuzzy and being able to continue, to build that moving forward. Because we want to, service as many buckets as we can through artists, through fan, through venue, and build that lifelong value. Yeah.
While sustaining a business model. And I think that's the solution. Consistent conversation, right? Understanding the needs, meeting in the middle. From an artist perspective, Christiane, I think you could really speak to this, your experience with this. What is your thoughts on that? And then also, like, what are some solutions that you've seen to some of these issues between the live venues, the promoters, and the artists? And I understand from a manager, I have trauma with it as well, working with artists of, like, dealing with live venues and like, we're not selling. You want us to sell tickets? We're not doing that. You want us to pay you? We're not doing that. Also, let me not be a hypocrite. I've also been a promoter and have charged artists in the past to come and perform at my events. Where like, I pay $50,000 for this person to come in. I want $1,500, $2,000 for you to come on the stage and entertain 3,000 people. So I've been on both sides. What is your perspective on like those questions and those relationships? I know those are long. I seen you thinking, and I'm like, damn, I'm asking too much.
No, it ties together. Firstly, the cost to run any show.
Yeah.
has increased to the point in order to actually recoup, as they statistically would say, your tickets would have to go up from $10 per person to $50 per person, because you can't change the number of seats in the venue.
Right.
These are closed spaces, right? So the costs continue to go up, but are you supposed to pass this cost on to the artist and on to the audience? What are you supposed to do with that? How do you relieve that burden for venues? Secondly, this kind of interaction between artists, venue, and promoter isn't always very transparent. I think it needs to be more transparent about what you are and aren't getting, so you know what you're signing up for, right? I miss the days when venues were special in its own right, and they didn't depend and put a pressure on an artist to have an audience. The beauty of being an artist is to have a place to play where you can build your audience, and there aren't any places like that today. They expect you to come in and be business. Like, already polished and all this stuff. I've seen some. Look, what is his name? Oh my God. Where's Khalifa?
Oh yeah.
Quiet Storm.
Yeah.
It might have been his second gig.
Yeah.
And that was something we did as musicians. We always made sure we had the younger generation coming up behind us. We were very transparent about utilizing. At that time, we were popular, so we utilized the platform to launch.
Yeah, and grow.
And grow,
learn.
right? Yep. You have to utilize your venue or your platform to believe in the artist and give them enough time to develop. There's never enough time for an artist to develop and actually build an audience when you give them one chance. You didn't bring anybody. Well, how am I supposed to bring somebody? I'm not even here enough. How am I supposed to bring somebody? Your bathroom smell like piss and beer. How am I supposed to bring somebody?
Those are real things.
You have not. You're so driven by money, which is understandable, but you're not driven by the talent. You're not driven by what this. I'm not talking about investing in potential. I'm talking about investing in talent. And I don't see that, right? So, but everyone expects everyone to be fantastic.
I will say shout out to the team at Haven in Oakland who are doing that now.
Right?
So.
Thank you. I haven't been out much, so thank you for keeping me.
And from an artist development point of we've developed artists of there is this notion of they have to come ready, markable. Their identity, right? Their brand identity has to be on point. Their marketing has to be on point. Their performance has to be on point. The music has to sound industry ready, globally ready. Yeah. From someone who's ran a record label and now a vinyl plant / I heard there's rumors of vinyl record. I don't want to give it up. How does that look in today of developing artists and having them ready for live venues? And there's one place now that's allowing that development, but is that the only place?
So yeah, and there's also shout out Roboto Project.
There we go. Also, let them know awareness is key.
Yeah, no, Haven, for my money is it's the news story in Pittsburgh of 2025, and I wish more people knew about it, and that's why I'm always talking about it, because oh my gosh, for the first time in 20 years there's an all ages, because it was underground for the last 2 decades, but now Oakland finally has a music venue open to the public. It's all ages. It's not it's not a bar. It's not 21 plus. And they're doing exactly what we're talking about, where it's it's almost like its own little scene where they're just it's the kids who are going to Pitt or
I was going to say it's all the young kids, and it's it hits me really hard because house shows was where it was at for me growing up, and that's where you found new budding talent was and you had to do it a little little off the cuff and under the radar because you didn't want the cops busting down your door. But honestly, trying to do house shows in that sense was they legitimized that into now, like you said, it's an all ages space that's welcoming the new talent. And it's it's purely a developmental, and they're discovering new artists.
Yeah.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, that was crazy. To the rest of your point, because I think I diverge from it slightly, but that's it's the age-old question. We were joking before about how it's it's well known within the music industry that it's maybe not necessarily the most talented innovative musicians to become rich and famous, it's the ones that are best at marketing themselves.
1,000%. And that's how, unfortunately, and sometimes fortunately, how we have to prep the development of our artists. Like, hey, you have to think about all of these aspects because you can no longer just operate as an artist. We have to think like a business.
Sure.
And like usually the conversations I have with the artists I work with is like, I just want to focus on the art. And I'm like, I 1,000% understand that.
Yeah.
But it's like unfortunate, like, hey, all of these things have to be packaged and ready if the business model wants to be scaled. If not, if it doesn't want to be scaled, then it's like, okay, cool. What does that look like?
Can I be an old G here and say, does it have to do that? Why does it have to do
Well,
any
that's
of
the
that?
question.
Why has technology entered our lives and now it's trying to tell us how to be artists, how to talk about our art, and like we're not even making art, we're making content to talk about the art we think we might be making. Like, who's running the show? Is it art and music, or is it technology that is telling us we have to wear 17 different hats to be legitimate to anybody in order for them to even slightly consider investing in us? I push back on it.
Yeah.
That's real. I mean, we can have that conversation.
That's kind of like the grant thing, though, too. We were talking about is that, with Pittsburgh being so nonprofit heavy and people looking for opportunities to get funded or get supported, and if you know how grants work, there's usually they're giving money to a program or they're giving money to a project. And you have to fit either one of those things, and it's not necessarily about development. It's not necessarily about certain things. You know what I mean? It's like not necessarily certain things, and you can't always get the funding that you want or need to develop as an artist through grants. You need other sources to make that happen, and unfortunately, like, there's just nothing else here that's like, hey, you know what? There's, or like, thinking about risks. Like, I'm thinking about somebody asked me a question and I'm like, man, like, artists need places to succeed, to fail, to, to be experimental, to, try to figure it out. And there's not a lot of places for artists to do that, because almost everything now comes with a price point of having to do that. Like, if I got to go practice, like, where do I go practice? Like, shout out to Little Giant for having a practice space.
Yeah.
But one
there's
practice space, I'm saying, though, one practice space for
the whole city.
How many people, right, to fail, to try, to let me get my stuff together.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, I want to practice this thing and practice this with my people and do that thing.
It's either Little Giant or in the basement.
Yeah.
Before I leave.
Yep, come on. No, don't leave.
I need to say that when we are suggesting that artists have to do all these things and need to do all these things, we're asking them to adopt to a certain kind of capitalistic structure. That what making art is about. And when I say art, I'm talking about every aspect. Creative, adjacent, musician, whatever. Is that what we wake up in the morning to make? Do I wake up in the morning to make a song so that it fits this capitalistic structure of being content worthy for Instagram and Facebook, and so I can generate all these fans who might actually pay 0.99 cent for a song that actually cost me $5,000 to make? Is this what we're doing?
I think it depends.
That's what I want to ask.
I think it depends on your goals. If your goal is simply to make art, then make art. But if your goal is to run a business, I think the goal is to run a business. And I think these are the real conversations I have with artists. It's just like, what are your goals? If your goals are simply you want to be passionate about your art and make your art, and if you can make some money, that's great. Then there's a route to that. If the goal
but you're talking about art like it's a hobby.
No, well, what is...
And you're like putting this whole capitalistic business structure on art, and if you don't follow all these aspects that you are a hobbyist, I think there's nothing wrong with someone who wants to spend 9 hours learning how to play violin.
I agree.
Classical musicians get to do that. You want me to sell tickets while classical musicians aren't out here selling tickets?
Oh, no, I don't know.
But I'm just saying, like, we have built a hierarchy of who gets to do certain things and who doesn't. Classical musicians don't have to do certain things, right? They are allowed to spend 10 hours a day, but everyone else is supposed to be a business. Everyone else is supposed to promote and market themselves. I just want to put that out there as how we're talking about things and look at it from a grand scope of not just rock music,
Sure.
hip hop,
Yep.
classical music, they all function differently.
1,000%.
And they're utilizing different models to stay sustainable, right? So when we say you have to be a businessman, we're talking about certain kind of musicians.
No, yeah, I do
Right?
want to point out, yeah, my specialties in hip hop and R&B. I just once again, I think it's about the goals. Like if your goal is creation of art and your passion for art, and like if you can make some money, you can make some money. If your goal is like, hey, I want to, if an artist says, I want to make X amount of dollars and I want to be recognized in these markets, I think, like you said, there are different paths to that. And there's multiple paths. There's not one way to skin a cat. We've seen artists do things 1,000 times differently, right?
But we don't really offer different paths. We talk about it, but we don't really.
But I think we need to educate, right? We need to make people aware of those different paths. Like, hey, this one artist did it this way, and they made a substantial amount of funds to support their family, and et cetera. And this other artist, there's 10, 15 ways, and I think that's what we're talking about, of like educating people, of like, and giving them case studies of like, there are multiple ways to do this thing, right?
Yeah, definitely giving them the opportunity to form in their own mind what they want to do with their own things. You know, it sucks when people get pulled into other people's lines of business, right? Like if I want to do if you're doing a show, then you're going to have to deal with, if some museum is looking at an artist and is telling them, to come and do this, you're going to have to deal with a certain type of business. It's like, we need to just be giving people information that helps them deal with any situation, how they want to deal with this situation, and not like you deal with the situation how I bring it to you, and that's it.
Exactly.
That doesn't allow for growth.
Suddenly, the creativity that we use to make the art disappears when we go to market ourselves or be a business, right? Why does that stop? Why does it suddenly become like some sort of different animal, right? Like when I'm consulting with artists, I'm like, how you are creative and making the thing should be very similar to how you promote
market.
it. Very similar to how you talk
that,
about it.
Yeah.
Like if you are a person who hangs out in the basement and makes your songs, don't go upstairs in the sunlight because you think people will respond better. You got to do it the way you want to do it. You got to do it the way that matches who you are. And a lot of times there hasn't been a presentation of all the different options. Like you don't have to do anything you don't want to do if it's not going to serve your whole
I love that last
self.
part. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do, and then there's another part that doesn't serve your entire self. Because there's a lot of things in my life that I don't want to do, but it serves the entire authentic self.
Yes.
From a manager and artist developer point of view, like in a region like this where like there's infrastructure, to your point, of like things that say, hey, these things have to go a certain way. How do we allow creatives and the creative adjacent people succeed in that infrastructure while remaining authentic to their creative selves?
Well, I think a lot of it needs to come up too, and just add to the conversation what we were just having. I mean, first of all, it needs to be said that if there was a handbook to how to become rich and famous about being musicians, everyone would do it.
Yep. Isn't it called How to Succeed in the Music Business?
With over however many millions of copies sold, right?
Yeah.
So there we go. Problem solved.
But
It's
there's
step by
like,
step.
there's different,
But that's what I'm saying. Like if the cliche is that if this was easy, then everyone would do it, right?
100%.
So, and that being said, and there's also the flip side of, being a hobbyist is almost, like, what if I just want to be in a cover band? There's maybe a little artistry to that, but, that's more of, I'm just playing, Bon Journey songs and having a good time.
Yeah.
So, that's another element of what we're talking about.
Yep.
I think people just, the thing that I struggle with is, especially locally, because a lot of what we find here are homegrown artists, it's finding the people who really are going to want to go all the way with that. Because a lot of people, let's be honest, some people aren't even having that honest converation with themselves.
Yes, they not.
Yes.
My manager side's coming out. Go ahead.
No, but you understand. That's what, makes it difficult sometimes. I feel like the people who do have that drive, there's nothing you can do to extinguish that flame inside them.
At all.
But, some of it is, and this is the part that I might get in trouble for, but it's true. It's just, like not everyone's reaching for that brass ring, and maybe they don't even realize it yet.
And maybe they don't want the brass ring. Like,
Right.
to your point, maybe
Maybe
that's
they
not their
don't want
dream.
the brass ring, and just because they
I
don't
love
want
this.
it, just because they don't want the brass ring doesn't mean they're not successful.
Maybe they want the
Doesn't
silver
mean
ring.
they're not
Maybe they want the
talented.
wood ring, and that's their dream.
Exactly. And then maybe they don't
And
want
there's
it
nothing wrong
until
with
like
that.
5 years. But there's a lot of shaming that goes on. There's a lot of shaming that goes on if you're a hobbyist. There's a lot of shaming going on if you're a wedding band. Like, it all takes
But that's a part of the
dedication
ecosystem.
and talent,
It's
right?
needed. That the wedding band is needed.
Sure.
All of this stuff is needed, but like the shaming that happens and acting like it doesn't take skills, rehearsal,
Yes,
and
it does.
talent,
Yeah.
and administrative stuff.
That's education. How do we stop the shaming? That's
I don't know, but it
education.
does happen, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, you
that
know, I
is
think a
also
lot of
part
it-
of not knowing
Yeah.
what you want to do or
Yeah.
don't want to do.
There's like a thing of that I think also we continue, like a lot of people just continuously walk away from is like understanding the goals of the artist. Like, because all this stuff starts with the artist. To
Yep.
me, it's like all this stuff starts with the artist. If I know an artist doesn't want to be in a gallery show, I'm not going to fight with the artist about being in my gallery show. If I know the artist doesn't want to be on a showcase with 10 other artists, I'm not going to force them to be on a show with 10 other art or like break my neck to like make it happen when I know they don't want that experience. So like even just like stuff that, and I know Christiane does this, it's like, what are your goals? Then you get a better understanding of what somebody's goals is, of what they want to do. And then, it is that the money part, because that's where everybody else falls into place. Is like, how can I make money off this person coming to do this thing at this thing that I'm thinking about doing? Honestly, like,
Yeah.
if I'm doing a show, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing a show, I need my museum show to be good. I'm going to try to pick the artists I think who can
Bring the
pull
most
that
people.
off, or like, I like their art and do certain things, but also like that's still me trying to plan my future of being able to do more shows. Like, you know what I mean? Same thing with venues. Like, I've had promoters in the past ask me, oh, do you think this artist is going to do well here in Pittsburgh? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are you asking me for? Like, you know what I mean? It's like they're going to do as well as you promote them, probably. Like, they're going to do as well as you're going to promote them. Are you going to give them people the opportunity to know that these folks are coming here? And I've had that, like, I felt bad for some artists who have traveled here and been like, I don't feel like this venue or this promoter really pushed my show, or they didn't have the right things ready for me to succeed, or like, it's just like, and they, you know what I mean? They like, I've literally had like, why didn't Pittsburgh show up for me? And I'm like, man, I did all I could to promote you because we have a relationship and I mess with your music and I tell people to like, come and show up. But like, I've had that where, and then the people just move on to the next show. Cause like once that 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock hits, guess what? They on to the next show that's happening tomorrow, next week, whatever. There's no like, this is what we plan marketable wise, or this is what, we want to build with you, or put you in the right, even putting people in the right venues or doing certain things. Again, like we've gotten away from, again, money tangles up everything and messes things up, and everybody has their goals of what they're trying to do and is not communicated well across the board as to the people who are participating, which is why you have such an entanglement of like all these questions that we're trying to pose and figure out and trying to get resources for and get people to understand, and people are mad and angry because, again, we've gotten away from the reason why some people want to do certain things. And if they want to get to that point, let them get to that point. Give them the resources and the spaces to do that, to get there. If they don't want to, leave the people where they at.
I think when money is the driver, you can miss what is marketable. I worked at a record store in Philadelphia, and we would get all the latest releases, and I pulled a CD out, and I was like, you guys got this all wrong. This person's going to be gigantic.
Yeah.
It was Tracy Chapman.
Nice.
That's how long ago it was, right? So my approach, even with the band who we would have be on the stage with us, it wasn't who had the numbers. It wasn't who brought people. Because at the end of the day, I'm a woman who doesn't get the same support. I am a woman of color who doesn't get the same support. So I know that the industry looks at me as less marketable. So I don't do what I do through that lens because it is a lens that has never worked for me. So when I would have people on the stage, it was always different women to provide a platform and to look at people and go like, I don't even think you know how much you want to be on this stage. And I'm going to like, we're offering this stage to you. I don't care if you have 0 fans. And we would repeat the show.
Yeah.
And the beauty would be like, this person would jump off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And become like very well known. And people are like, oh my God, I'm so glad you introduced. Like people aren't doing that either. They're not sharing
Information.
No, they're not sharing themselves and their art and their stage with other people. Right? Everyone has to suddenly have, you got to bring people in. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You got to bring your talent in.
Right.
And your talent brings the people. To me, that's how I look at it. I don't look at the other way around. Right? When people are like, I bring the numbers, I'm like,
yeah.
But do you bring the talent?
I think
That brings the numbers, right?
Because the talent is definitely going to be that long.
Talent and authenticity to me is just number one to me. Number one. I have supported so many artists and musicians that no one noticed. People disregarded. And they popped off.
Yeah.
Because you give them a stage, a highlight, a shine on them to go like, this person's amazing. And you think they're not amazing because they don't tick off these things. You're missing a lot of amazing people around you because you have this like list of what they should be. And when they don't tick off that list for whatever reason, you won't give them a stage, a platform, any shine. And they jump off. And that's something that I've seen over and over that could actually be repeated.
Yeah.
As a program or whatever, actually helping people. And that's what I think about with venues and promoters or whatever. Sure. What is the jump off point?
I think we're talking about a lot of different issues and thinking about the solutions to those issues and building the spaces that allow artists to grow in real time. Like, what does that look like? What is sustainable support to allow venues and promoters to create spaces to allow artists to grow and develop their live show? What is business models and awareness campaigns look like to allow artists to develop their business if they choose to, right? What are the infrastructures and support systems that allow artists to develop their creative, right? And sustain? Is that subsidies? Right? Is that venue support? Is that education? And like me and Adam had a conversation as we're rounding this conversation with the work that's going on in Philadelphia. Shout out to Carrie. We had a great conversation yesterday. And I want to identify some of the things that they are talking about as it relates to their ecosystem building. And one of the things she said, and Thomas, we talk about this a lot, is that the issues with the music ecosystem are the issues that are happening in the arts ecosystem and are the issues that are just human issues.
Yes.
Right? And she said something that was incredible. Thank you for the notes you sent last night. I used that in my notes, is that we need to start, when we're talking about being solution oriented and having conversations with external stakeholders and making them care if they are not music champions, is that music as a solution to broader city and regional issues. And can we speak to like, what does that mean to each individual here in this room? And Adam, you could start.
Give me a second to think on that.
Yep. Well, Jeff or whoever.
Christiane, you wanna
start? What does that mean to you, Thomas? Or I could start.
Yeah, you start. I'll follow.
Okay. So I believe, and that's fine. Music as a solution to broader city issues. We're talking about living wage. So like when you talk about creatives and like what does that wage look like? Are we talking about union wage rates? Like, is there a definition to the value that a creative brings? Is it based off of audience? Is it based off of streaming numbers? Is it based off of experience? Are we creating an environment for them to grow? So like, how do we identify living wage? And living wage or like wages or like prices per product or creative service. Is there a definition for that? And that's an issue for artists to sustain their livable situations, right? So you talk about living wage, you're talking about transportation, you're talking about education, you're talking about healthcare. These are not just creative issues or creative adjacent issues. Videographers, graphic designers, producers, engineers, right? These are issues that happen also in the arts ecosystem and art verticals. These are issues that human beings in the region are experiencing. We have the PRT cuts that's been a constant conversation for 6 months. We're having the healthcare conversation, the black maternity, maternity issue, and like the perception and awareness around that, right? Education and like access to education, access to education that's not always traditional, right? Like these are issues that every single human being faces. We're talking about them in a nuanced way, but as you scale them up, the solutions we're talking about violent crimes and providing third spaces, as Carrie talked about yesterday.
Right.
Like, hey, if the place in Oakland is Haven.
Haven, yeah.
Yeah. If there's more places like Haven, that's a third place for kids to be at. Where the studies show, data shows more third places for people in the age of 21, especially in specific neighborhoods, crime goes down. Right? The broken window theory, right? That's when I look at music as a broader solution and presenting this information to people, it's human issues.
Yeah.
Right? I hoped, I was just rambling, but I hope that gives Thomas or whoever else.
No, and I mean, I just, for me, it's, and I've been thinking about how to help, the Pittsburgh music community for a very long time.
I know. We talk about it all the time. We've talked about it for like 7, 8 years now.
Yeah, and I told you, it's like, once you start pulling on the thread long enough, once you go down that rabbit hole far enough, you start getting to very big, very broad issues. Like when you're like what you said, it was like you start to realize that like the things that would help Pittsburgh musicians are just the things that would help Pittsburghers in general.
Yep.
What if we just help public transportation or just
1,000%.
I mean, I think a lot of it is what I've been thinking about too is the values of the people, like respecting the values that people have, and I think there's such a lack of respect for the value of the community as a whole. And maybe it needs to like be restated, or maybe it needs to come back together. You know what I'm saying? Just like people valuing people the right way and not just using them as like these tools to get to a certain place and discard them when you want to.
Yeah. That always sucks.
Musicians, like every piece of art, people have like their own values, that they support. I mean, like even just like with Boom, we have our specific set of values of how we're going to treat people, how we're going to support people, and that's just the bottom line, right? Like, I think there needs to be like one of those things where like the music ecosystem says, these are our values, and they can be super simple, and people can agree with them, or it creates an opportunity for more conversation. But I think if you have a certain set of values that people need to like respect, then that kind of hopefully, it's like, you hope that people will respect it across the board, but like, you know what, I respect making sure that I have to pay this artist for what I'm asking them to participate in. Like, I'm not bringing them in or just like, I think we were having a conversation too, it's just like, people be coming up with their own numbers of paying folks.
There has to be a standard, right?
What's the standard of pay? Like, what's the standard of making sure this artist is leaving? I can't tell you to come and perform for $100 if I don't know like how you're traveling to get there, or like what are you doing to travel? What is this time taken away from in your life to come and perform for this for $100? Or like, are you paying other people to participate with you? Like, people bring DJs, people bring people who play instruments.
Bringing a DJ and getting paid $100 is insane.
But I'm just saying. But look, there's people that have these numbers that are just like, what, oh, this is our set numbers. Where did that come from? So people have to put that value, like, you have to value us at this here, are we not doing it?
You're talking about a
And
Bill of
people have to
Rights.
start.
You're talking about a creative Bill of Rights.
I mean, it's just like, but it's real though. I mean, I again, it's like when you don't have any value, people make up your own value for you.
I agree. Mic drop.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, I try to say that to kind of like artists too. Like, if you don't know your own value, people are going, when they ask you to do something, they're going to just come at you with any number or anything that you need to do. And that's that.
It's a co-responsibility.
Yep.
They're responsible to pay you a great rate, and you are responsible to know what your worth is and what that rate should be. It's a co-responsibility. We can't have learned helplessness.
Yep.
And everyone's like, I didn't know.
Learn helplessness. Is key.
Right? There's way too much knowledge out here to not know.
God. Learn helplessness is.
Or people that ask. There's too many people to ask to like say, where did you start at? You know what I'm saying? Like, where did you start at?
I'd be like, Thomas, it's about awareness. He was like, also like, these people not looking nothing up.
It's
like,
research,
no,
y'all.
no,
Like, it's
open your
research. There's a lot of
Research.
research. There's people around you that do it.
Library, like, yeah.
I mean, we got the internet now. You can just jump on the internet and see where
In your
somebody
boxers.
said.
We had to get on a bus to go to a library, kids. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's real. You went and researched and figured it out what
Yeah.
and what you're based off of, like what you felt your value was at the time. Hey, this is what I want to be paid. This is the standard of me participating. Like, these are the needs that I need to participate.
Yeah.
Not just what you feel like giving me, and that doesn't work. You know, like, I mean, I ask all my DJs, I'm like, what equipment do y'all need? Are you bringing your own equipment? Do we need to go get some equipment? Do I need to ask the venue or the whatever the place that I'm at? Do they have
But they should
this
already
equipment?
be giving you a stage plot.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying like them giving us that info.
A lot of people
yes,
I deal
that's
with
true.
don't know what's a stage plot.
Yeah, that's
I'm just
You're talking
saying.
about creative, and I don't want to limit it to artist accountability. You're talking about creative accountability because there's accountability on the producer side, the engineer side, right? Like there's accountability on the videographer side, right? I've dealt with it across the board as a manager of like, you are not providing the service at a certain standard, right? And they just don't have the knowledge to do it. And then when they're asking for help, it's like these things are simple enough for you to look up. Right. I also want to talk about some of the other things that we in our meeting with Carrie from Philadelphia, who runs that task force, and they just announced a Music City. Did I say that correctly?
yeah. What is it? The original? What are they? The original Music City?
The original Music City. They
Is
just
what Phillies
announced
call
that.
themselves.
Okay.
For the record,
That's-
in order for that to happen, they used Pittsburgh to shame council members, saying that we have the Music Month. Right?
Yeah, it was the Music Month, and it was
July.
the nighttime.
Isn't
event.
that? And we look at
Nighttime
Music Month as like something that we have to pump blood back into, and it's also it's sustaining, right? But like, it's very interesting how Pittsburghers are able to look at something and be like, "Hey, like this needs some work," while other people are using it to jumpstart. I just love that perspective, and you see, I laughed on the phone. The task force, and I asked her personally because we have been a small group of people that have been working very hard for the last year. She spoke to how the task force will likely rely heavily on a small core group of dedicated individuals. Strategic engagement of individuals with different capacities and influence is essential. Strategic engagement, right? So like thinking through that. And then the philosophy, Thomas and Christiane, you spoke to this a lot, of pursuing incremental wins and maintaining continuous engagement. She talked about how the work is never done in building an ecosystem. Yeah. Never. It's never going to end. And that people are going to say, hey, you started this process a year ago. What happened? And it's like, well, okay, we got these small wins and we're aiming for these midterm or short-term wins, right? And these are the larger goals. There is no finish line. And I kind of want your perspectives on like attacking those incremental wins. What do those incremental or smaller immediate 6-month or 12-month wins look like for us? And then the whole perspective of like, how is the region going to respond to the work of like the Pittsburgh music ecosystem and contribute versus throwing problems and tomatoes?
Yeah. I mean, it is like, I think a lot of fundamentally like finding where the gaps in policy is and where the cross section of all of these different places can come into play. Like the musician loading zone is I feel like should be an incredibly easy win that can benefit everybody. Trying to look at things like, small venues paying amusement tax and, talking to venues, like nobody knows where that amusement tax is even going, and it's not being reinvested back into
I know
community.
It was another conversation.
But even just having like that understanding of like where that's going and how it can be like reinvested back into the ecosystem, and being able to, you know, positively impact artists, positively impact venues, positively impact the ecosystem at large. Like where, like trying to find like little policy wins, trying to find like a champion in the city that can really help like move some of these policy positions forward.
She talked about identifying a council. She said what was key in their movement is identifying a council person in the city. And I think we have all had conversations. Look at she started looking. We have all had conversations about who that person might be, but like whatever camera. Yeah. We will be having a conversation soon. Because there are some champions, right? People who are involved in music on the council. And there are champions culturally for the county as well.
Yeah.
And also, I think a small win is like getting our hands around the Pittsburgh music ecosystem platforms, the websites, right? And like providing, like, what's going to be really easy is, can we get a central hub where people can get information nonstop? And can that be maintained for longer than a year?
It's something that, like, I feel like we were all talking about.
That's it.
I mean, I'll do
Very
that.
simple.
That would be a great win.
That would be, oh my goodness, that might be the biggest win in the world. Can people have a trusted source of information?
Yeah, that's like I think we're all talking about, like, everybody, like, when left to their own devices, do their own thing. Like, they all do their own things. If there's not, I don't want to say like there needs to be like you have to do things this way, but if there's at least like centralized information about as much information in the music ecosystem that's going on as possible, like that, like I think everybody here, like we're all signal boosters in a sense, and like if we can continue to do that from a holistic and from a larger ecosystem perspective to make sure everybody's aware of like any opportunity that's out there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that communicative piece and like just knowing where things are at, like that in itself is a challenge of finding where things are at.
Yeah.
You know what?
Nope.
Nah, because stop.
Everyone look out.
Always doing this. But you know, when I think about like the work that I have done, I know is for the betterment of the arts. Mm-hmm. Like, it's gonna live. If I help somebody, that's gonna live longer than me, and I hope so. I hope that's how that happens. I hope the information that I put out reaches other people. I hope the work that I do helps people move forward and they're able to help somebody else with that same type of information. You know, I hate to always go back to like the money, but if like more people stop thinking about just how they feel in their pocket at that time, and how because if we work together to solve issues, and we need to be more transparent about like needing help. Like if venues need help, we need to know what it is y'all need help with.
Yep.
If it's like, yo, I need to find training for my staff, I need to figure out how to, you know, I got some gaps in my funding, whatever that may be, like, let's all
structural problems, funding problems, permitting problems,
like,
health department problems, etc.
All of that. How, you know, you know what? Like, I'm not getting in contact with the city government over some specific issues
Minor
they told me
planning,
that they got me held up on. How do we better that relationship? Yeah, man, it's such a large like process. I mean, I think definitely money gets in the way of a lot of that, because you can't just tell everybody like, stop.
Wait a minute.
Let's wait.
I'm sorry, I watched too much TikTok.
But you know, like, stop. Let's like put a halt to everything and then like start to work, because tomorrow somebody's rent due and somebody's light bill is due and somebody's something is due, and it just, that sucks. But I don't know. We have to like slowly but surely put in better practices into everything that we are doing.
That'd be an incredible win.
You know what I mean? Like, slowly but surely, like, oh, you know what? This sounds like a better practice that can help me become a better something.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just looking at the things that people are saying, like, hey, it would be better if you gave me this, you know, this information, or you helped me with this thing, and you're like ignoring it, then like you're still being the problem to any situation that's like out there. Like if you're just completely ignoring it. But then, like, you also run the risk of, like, your business is going to close because you don't want to have better practices. And people don't want to deal with you no more. People don't want to connect with you because you're bad for business.
Or you're just rude.
Yeah.
All of these
There's
things.
business etiquette that I'd love to have conversations about. I kind of want to round this conversation out with talking about the long-term goals of our Philadelphia conversation, which is extremely exciting. And then also, like, our goals for this town hall and, like, of course, us looking forward to seeing people there. So do you want to kind of touch on, like, our conversation about, like, what does this look like, the relationship between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh over the next 12 to 18 months?
I mean, yeah, being that Philly first-class city, Pittsburgh second-class city, the largest metropolitan areas in PA would be, the prospect of being able to collaborate with Philadelphia and trying to be able to galvanize from a state level some of these asks, and also keeping in mind, like, there are other municipalities, other areas in the state as a whole that are also doing a lot of this work in smaller regions. I think being able to pool collective resources so that we can be able to attract, state agency support, and being able to understand that, like, music as a part of the arts as a whole is a very valid cultural and economic driver. Like, we have a lot of leverage. I mean,
how many billions of dollars they said they raised in their economic development report? I think it was like $6 billion.
Yeah.
Just music alone for Philadelphia?
The study, like,
we gotta at least be rated 2.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, like, to understand kind of like what's at play from, from a people perspective, from a financial perspective, from an economic driver perspective, like, we know kind of
workforce.
Yeah, like, what does the workforce look like? We're talking about ecosystem at large, and, like, it's not just the venues, it's not just the artists, it's not just the promoters, it's the engineers, it's the photographers, it's the videographers, it's the manufacturing plants, it's managers, agents, anybody under the sun that, like, has this impact. There's such a wide swath of that. So to be able to try to figure out a way to, do a little bit of city shaming, do a little bit of city shaming, and, like, working and balancing off of each other to understand, this is what, like, looking what Philly did and being able to apply that in Pittsburgh, like, to the earlier point, like, a lot of these issues are happening nationally.
Yep.
So understanding, like, what are those issues, and then how can we galvanize together as a state to be able to go for state asks and state funding.
Prospect.
I mean, it's like an example of something that I thought was, something really special was the state of Tennessee was able to find a champion in their state legislature to be able to enact a Tennessee Live Music Fund. They're running into issues right now where they're trying to figure out ways to fund it, but the passage of it to be able to create a mechanism that can then go out to re-support the ecosystem at large, like, it would be amazing to see something like that happen where there is public-private funding that can go into this pool to help support artists and to be able to support the ecosystem at large.
Yeah. And then I cite this last case study and then go into the town hall, but New York was able to find funding to pay, I think it was 500 to 1,000 artists, a $60,000 salary, and then build an ecosystem with nonprofits, corporations, organizations, so they can provide salaries on a defined wage rate. It was an incredible, I think we looked at that. It was an incredible case study, and I'm like, hey, we don't even need, like, half of that. What does that look like for us, right?
Sure.
I want to ask everybody here in the room a question before we close. Christiane, what is, from your perspective, the goal of this upcoming town hall?
Work.
I love
work. There's been more than enough talk. We were the first city that Don Pitts worked on.
Mm-hmm.
We have more than enough resources. We don't realize people look to us and are inspired by what we do and actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to ask ourselves, how do we have these things, but how come we're not able to do it? Right? What is actually blocking our ability to implement things that other cities are able to kind of look at it and just make it happen? What is it that we're not taking advantage of?
Thank you. That's an incredible answer. I believe the same thing. Jeff, your answer to the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need the town hall needs to be about focusing energy and bringing solutions, because on social media and in person, everyone loves to complain, but we need to talk solutions to the problem, and it doesn't even have to be on all of us are doing things on this panel, but it doesn't even have to be at a large scale. It can be like at a very small one-on-one scale. Like, what are you in your life doing to provide solutions to the problems that you love to complain about?
Yeah, 1,000%. What are you? Enough complaining. That's what Carrie was talking about too. Like, they deal with the same thing in Philly, which is like everybody has something to say, but when it comes and everybody wants to sit at the table, when it comes to the work, she said, Michael, Adam, you will have a very small group core of people for a long period of time, and you'll have to move the needle, and like it's gonna be tough. Yeah. But like I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. What is your goal of the town hall?
I would. Two things. It's it's that one question that it's trying to understand the answers to what can you support, like as participants, for people that are participating in this, to bring in what are things that you can support, and understanding what that capacity looks like.
Yep.
But the second thing, I think to your point, Jeff, is I've been saying this a lot over the last month or so, is that it's an ecosystem, not an ecosystem. We gotta if we can push that as much to the side to find real tangible solutions that we can all identify as we can get this done together, and not in our own separate silos. Like, it's the easy wins. If we can identify that, then it's a success.
I agree. Posing the question to you, Thomas.
I hope we recognize that we all need help. And don't feel afraid about saying what you need help with. And people who are, the professionals can kind of step in and provide that help, or at least start to have the conversations with people that lead them to the resources that help them find out however they want to navigate in the ecosystem, not only just based off of what said industry says they need to operate at. Because I think that's just with everything. Once everybody's trying to navigate to where they have something healthy, right? Like, everybody wants to have a healthy career or a healthy business or something. But you need help to get there. And I think once you really figure out what your goals are and how you can actually connect with your community, because, there's a lot of willing people in the community that want to help, and want to build and work together. And, I also hope it inspires just more more real conversations that leads to more help. There's a lot of people who have great insight, that could say one thing to somebody and that be the piece that works for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I've seen it many times. Christiane has been that for me a lot of times. There's a handful of other people that I've worked with that say these couple things or just do this one action, and I'm like, this is all I needed.
Yeah.
This is all I needed to get to this next point. And there are a lot of people who just want some little piece that they need help with to get to their next place. And, is kind of jacked up that we don't just have people who are just willing to jump in and kind of get, offer that. And I think, we always saying you can't be helpless. You also got to go out there and get it and research. Yeah. So I hope the people who are coming in hearing some of this or hearing this, it pushes them to research how they can also help, and be a part of the solution.
We got to have courage. We got to be okay being messy. Messy's not the same as being shitty.
I think.
But people are scared. Everything's cringe. They're scared to do anything. We got to be courageous. We have to try different models of how to run an event. Let's try this model this time. Let's see who's making the money. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try this model. Yeah. We should have a pretend venue and try out different models, payment models, and see what works. As an example.
Creativity is needed. Creativity is definitely needed. And every single person is creative in their own right. So different things are going to work for different people, and we just have to learn how to adapt to saying, like, cool, that works for you. I'm going to help you in the form that you're asking for. And I think that's just hard for a lot of people because they come into the game with their idea of what it is that they want to do, and they just want people to fall into place of what it is that they're doing. And that never works out. I've seen it many times not work out. So,
but it's also like, except not everything's for you. Like if you get no's, sometimes that's not the thing. Like what looks like is great on Instagram is not actually a great experience. Like, you know what I mean? People are pining and hungering for things that they don't really know what's behind the scenes.
It's education.
Right?
Yeah,
like, is touring great? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
not really.
No, it's not.
Oh,
I had to, was able to hang out with my friends. I was like, it changed my view because at that point I was like, we got to be touring. And, I consider myself professional or band professional. And I was like, ain't no way. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on no bus for days. Which changes like what you want. You think touring is the thing. And then you get in it and you're like, oh, no, I gotta.
Shout out to the homie Zeke.
Yeah.
And like, I went to a show in Cleveland with, it was Devin Miles. And
shout out to
he
Devin.
went to like support. He was like a supporting act for G-Eazy. I believe it was G-Eazy. And we like packed in a car and went, and like me kind of being in the background and just watching how everything was moving, and then him also like explaining like the money they had to put into just for him to be the supporting act on these couple shows. Right. And then like, there's so many people like, oh, like you said, oh, we got a tour, I want a tour. I'm like, y'all need to be experiencing that. I'm not even a music artist. Y'all need to be experiencing that to understand the effort that you need to be
to even get
supporting to get there. You have to do so much work to get to a certain place. So it's like, you have to. It's almost like some things like you need like internships. You need some of these things to like learn and build, because there's a lot of people who are, again, it's like I hate that everything usually is like DIY. It just sucks so bad, because that also takes a lot of time for people to have to like build and learn and do this, and it's like
there's
10
an
years
education
later,
part.
Like,
and sometimes it takes you 5 years to learn it.
Yep.
Sometimes you might not be ready for a tour for 10 years, 6 years. Like maybe your first tour was horrible. Your second tour might be incredible, but it was only incredible because your first tour was horrendous.
Yep. Well, the saying is it takes you 10 years to become an overnight success.
It's real. It is so real.
Oh yeah, Tyree allowed me to be on like tour with him too. He went to like a couple spots, and also again just like seeing what you have to do and the timing and the effort this
is what I say.
You know what I mean? Like, because
it's
people
a job.
It's a job.
Like people like, oh, like I just want to do art and like you just live and free and like be a butterfly, but like also like it's a job,
wait,
bro.
And it's a very physical job.
It's a physical, mentally demanding job.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm waiting for transporter pods. That's how I'm gonna do my tour.
I gotta go. No, that was crazy, yo, to be able to like see all the work that had to happen to go to different places. And then, I think we were on
Thank
a thing
you so
where
much. Thank you. See ya.
Thank you. We were on a thing where I think maybe one of the shows got canceled, and I'm like, all right, so what do we do now? We got paid for an extra night in this hotel
out of pocket,
or we got to go and do this for this. You know what I mean? So like understanding like, you have to have an opportunity. Like I think there needs to be more voices that talking about
the reality
of seriousness of this work, and not just like, oh yeah, I got to go tour with blah blah blah, and it was so great and fun.
Oh my! So many people do that so they can say that.
You know what I mean? But it's
they think that's the goal.
Like, I want to hear you talk about how you got like.
How
from
well
Pittsburgh.
did you do with your merchandise? How much? What was the profit loss margin on the show?
Or how did you get fans?
How did you build your fans? Like, how did you grow your fans? How did you engage your fans post show? Did you do any activations the day of the show? Tell me about your experience on the bus. What was your call time on the bus? What was your lead off? Did you work with your merchandise person? Did you hire photographers and videographers in every city? Did you pay a videographer? How much did you pay your DJ? Like. Tell me that shit. Don't tell me I was just on a show and such and such. No one cares.
Right.
The people who matter don't care about that.
Right.
Because they immediately know you're doing it for a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my goals for this is one, I would love to immediately establish a task force to identify actionable small wins 6 to 12 months. And I think my second goal is like, I'm just so tired of like the division and like, there are so many incredible things that are already happening. Little Giant, I just learned about Haven. I got to catch one of those shows.
Yeah.
Right? Boom's already doing some education. Emerald City's doing education. You have Harriman and Braddock, the Pearl Arts. You have Lee Davis. You have Dion Dupree. There are like at least 10 or 15, 20 music-based programs that are going on right now that nobody is talking about. And they all have their, for kids under the age of 21, for adults, for professionals, for beginners. And we keep saying that the city has this huge issue. But in reality, yeah, there are some issues, but there are a lot of things that are serving some of those issues already. So, like, one of my goals is, like, let's stop the division and, like, how do we cohesively align all of these 10 to 15, 20 things, live venues, education, awareness, artist development. They have a place out in Homestead that I toured that was incredible, that has 2 huge warehouses and about to have a state-of-the-art building down the street. Like, how do we tie these things together, identify a cohesive list of attacks as a organization, as a unit, not an organization, because we we don't want another job, but
got a job.
but like as like a collective group of people that are spread out of like, hey, can we have at least some alignment, right? Sure. And make people aware of these things, and
But I think that's we go back to the values base.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know what your values are, or the values needed to do what you need to do, you're just doing a bunch of loose stuff. And everybody's doing a bunch of loose things based off of what they think is going to help their business be, whether it be bad or whether it be good practices, right? Like there's a lot of people that just picking up practices in hopes that they succeed or they make money or they live to the next day. And it's like, that doesn't mean what you're doing is helpful to the community at a whole. You know what I mean? Like you could be really passing on some bad practices that people go off somewhere else and be like, we don't do that around here. Like you're bringing something that, you know what I mean, that we don't do in this city, this region, what, you know what I mean, no matter what it is. So
it's true.
You know, like we're doing all this research and got all this info. Like, again, we need to just sit down and be like, hey, these are our core values. Can we agree on this? Cool. We leading with this and we're making a statement and saying that this is what it is, and the people that are involved in this here, you got to abide by that. And if you don't, then
alignment.
Don't interact with us. Don't interact with us. Like keep doing your thing. That's cool. But if there's some people that our values align, we're gonna work with you, and you'll start to just see the successes happen, man. Like when people are like, oh yeah, okay, like I've listened to you, I hear what you're saying, like I respect the values that you got, and this is how we can lead with this. I mean, again, it's hard when you're just thinking about money. Like if I'm just thinking about how many people I fill up and how many beers I can sell, and how many tickets did you sell for my venue to stay open or for my business to do its thing, then I feel like you already lost.
30 seconds. Last thoughts, Jeff.
I hope people come to the town hall and they've got an open mind.
Yeah, bring positive energy because we need it to be able to move forward.
Thomas?
Hey, let's just be real about the help that we need. And it doesn't always have to be in a way where it's negativity or a negative output. We can say we need help in certain ways and it come out very positive, because you can get positive responses from somebody just saying, I need help here. People are going to raise their hands up and connect with you or figure out a way. Like, we need to think about it in that way instead of just always going to the negative, because that's where I feel like people want us to go anyways, to the negative.
Such is human nature. I want to thank everybody for taking the time here to sit down and have this incredible conversation. We look forward to seeing everybody on Wednesday, Town Hall Part 2, 7 p.m., City Winery, Pittsburgh, the original Pittsburgh Winery. A shout out to my folks, and he's pushing a single right now. So like, make sure like you share, repost, and listen to him. He's an incredible singer. See you all there.